as we can see from this daily chart, once it broke out of kind of this April position here at the $4,000 level, as opposed to breaking down to maybe retest the lows, or even, as many of the bears assumed, to make new lows. Ever since it made this massive candle back on April the 2nd, it really has not looked back at all. And many of you, or many sort of pundits and analysts out there, have been predicting tops ever since. And sadly, a perma bear will always pick tops after a big move higher, because they're so biased to the downside that they want to force their views and opinion on the market. And they've been doing it ever since this December peak, ever since this February peak, ever since these peaks here in April, and then the peak a few weeks ago in May at 8,000, and now even the peak right here at 9,000. I hear many YouTubers, not to name names, but have been calling tops almost with every single one of these. And eventually one of these will become more of an intermediate time frame top, and we will see a 30% decline or 40% decline even. As I showed in the last video, bull markets will shake out. They will provide pullbacks and corrections of 30%. But for the people that are hodling for the long term, those are just part and parcel of a massive bull market. They occur, and they will occur frequently. And going back to process planning, okay, we need to be mentally prepared for each and every one of those. And I think one might be coming right now. It's hard to say, but the point is that if you're getting out now in a hodling strategy just to increase or potentially increase your BTC stack, you run the risk of doing what they did right here at the $5,000 level. And it was all over my comments, it was all over my email and DM, people getting out to buy a lower price. You run the risk of this market just going higher, even from here, even from this extended and elevated level. And here it is on the weekly chart. Yes, it looks extended here. It looks like it's had a run that needs to pull back quickly and soon. But there really is nothing stopping this market right here from continuing higher, maybe even to test the $20,000 level by the summer. That sounds ridiculous. It sounds, that's just not plausible to many of you, and it's not my expectation. It's not what a prediction I'm making right now. But as a hodler, we need to be prepared for each and every one of these types of scenarios, because our goal is in the six-figure range for Bitcoin. And if we're going to start trading, then you really want to be a very good trader to understand when to get out, when to know that you're wrong, when to minimize your risk or your position of being out of position, to not avoid being caught without a position as it continues to go higher. So, I keep hearing again, I get to get out and make some more Bitcoin by buying in lower. Well, that hasn't worked too well so far. And if you look at the price change from a percent standpoint, from the bottom here at the $3,100 level to where we are now, we're talking about 185. Sorry, let me do that. Yeah, it's around about 187% gain in the market. So people like saying, well, it's impossible to get to 20,000 in the short term. Well, I think it's unlikely. I agree. But if we draw from the $9,000 level to the $20,000 level, something interesting is what you see. You see percentage gain to the $20,000 level is only 126% from here. Yet in the last 4 months, Bitcoin has made 187% gain. So careful with your bias, and careful making statements like it's impossible or just can't happen. Yes, it's unlikely, but we've already seen this massive move. We already see a parabolic-like structure that's in play. So I just want to warn you that losing position now to try and get more Bitcoin for the massive move higher is really, again, a fool's game. And I've been trying to reiterate this from the beginning of my videos. It's important not to do that. Really what it requires is much more mental discipline and less focus on price and what the market is doing, and less focus on the gains that you have on paper for now. I know many of you are already saying, oh, this is great, I'm up 100% and so forth. And if you bought in heavy at the bottom, congratulations, but that also can be, in the future, your downfall, because you may have too big a position and you can't handle the gains. If you're finding gains at $9,000 already being difficult to hold because they are substantial to you, then you may want to look at lightening up a little bit. And that's why I advocate kind of that 10% holding, because I want a position in Bitcoin that does not get me excited. And I know making profit and sort of earning is supposed to be a great thing, and it is a good thing, but I don't want it to be overwhelming for me, because then it takes away my focus on the goal and the process and the plan of obtaining a $100,000 or plus price in Bitcoin. I want to have my strategy in place, and I want to follow my plan and process all the way up there, and I can only do that if my size and my position is the right one, and also that I have the mental discipline to execute on a plan like that. I mean, let's face it, the whole point of a HODL strategy like this is that you don't need to be concerned or concern yourself with the price movements of a market, especially here as it's moving $1,000 either way. During the end of the last bull market, Bitcoin was moving $1,000 a day up and down, and if this action recently is having you question whether you should buy or sell at a given time, it's only going to get harder as we move up the nominal price scale here as time progresses. I mean, just look at the opportunity ahead. We've gained 187%, which is just phenomenal, right? But again, our goal here. Sorry, let me see if I can. Here is to realize a price of around 100,000 or more. So if we look at 100,000, we're looking at a 1,000% increase. So we've got up 187% so far. We still have a 1,000% increase of gains potentially ahead. But then looking up towards, let's just say 170, it goes up to a couple of 1,000%. And you get the point. Point is that the road ahead is long but arduous, and it will require mental discipline to hold all the way through. And if you're getting giddy and excited right now, then you're probably not going to execute on the overall plan. Now look, there's nothing wrong with making 100%, 200%, or 300% gain in any market, but that's not what my goal is here. My goal here is for a sort of life-changing event where we're looking at 50x or more in gains, while at the same time not risking a lot, not putting your financial well-being at risk, not losing sleep over this. So trying to make this as a simple process as possible with maximizing the amount of gains as possible. Now, of course, Bitcoin has to get up to that level for this to work out, and there's no disputing that. I'm not trying to tell you it's a guarantee or certainty, because it's not, but I don't want Bitcoin to make another move, another cycle like it has in the past, and for me not to participate in that way. Knowing what I know today, knowing what I believe today, I don't want to be looking back in 2 or 3 years and saying, damn it, I really knew, I had that feeling it was going there, I predicted it, I planned for that, but I just didn't take advantage of it for whatever reason. Many of you already were in this position in the last cycle and may have been invested for that cycle, but got out way too early, or just never got out, for example, because you just didn't have a plan and you're going with the tide of emotion that market presented to you. But now you're more informed, you've gone through the process before, and you have a strategy in place. I mean, along that theme, I posted a tweet the other day that we talk about the tulip mania that occurred in Holland 300-400 years ago now, and then we talk about the South Street bubble. We talk about the roaring 20s here in the US. We talk about railroad bubbles. We talk about the dot-com bubble. And some of those are a couple of centuries removed. Most of them are many, many decades removed. And Bitcoin, and I will call it a bubble because it will become a bubble. Every great technology ends in a massive blow-off and a bubble that pops. It's just the nature of how speculative markets work, especially in the early adoption periods. And Bitcoin is absolutely, without any doubt, not only part of that club, but probably going to go down in history as the biggest of all bubbles, right? If not the biggest, the top three. And that means they're going to be talking about Bitcoin. They're going to be studying Bitcoin in economics classes in the 22nd century and the 23rd century. They're going to be talking about you here today as a participant of that bubble, right? And they're going to be studying that, for, like I said, for centuries to come. So you are right now sitting in history amongst what will be talked about for a very long period of time. That is an opportunity. And I think many of you know this and appreciate it, but I'm not sure if you really step back and think of the sort of enormity of this opportunity and where we stand today. And we have that opportunity ahead of us, but only if we have a plan, a process, and we have the discipline to execute on this. So if you want to trade altcoins, you want to trade Bitcoin in futures markets, I do that. Do that with a separate account, right? Don't, have two different strategies if that's what you need. If you have that urge, right, because many traders have an urge, many traders need to trade, and it's the emotional side that really tugs at them for doing that. It's a gambling aspect to trading. Many of us have it. I'm not afraid to say that I got into trading sort of 25 years ago because of the thrill of watching, price go up and down. If you have that, which I am sure many of you do, then just separate your accounts. Just say to yourself, you know what? I've got one account here on the 4-year journey. I see the opportunity ahead for Bitcoin, and I'm not gonna waste the opportunity, or I'm not gonna have a situation where if it gets up to that 6-figure level and above, that I'm not gonna be a part of it. And then try your luck on trading if that's what you want to do. Learn the disciplines, learn the strategies, learn risk management correctly, and trade positioning. And have a go at it if you really feel that you could benefit out of doing that. I'm not going to stop anybody. I'm not going to encourage anybody to not do that if they feel that's the path they want to take. But let me tell you, that's a very skilled arena that you'd be playing in, and it's not easy. And if you're trying to compare or compete against something like a HODL strategy where the goal is for this to go up by 3,000 or 4,000%, then I'm going to tell you it's going to be very, very difficult to know which alts, to hold the alts, and to trade the alts in a way where you're going to just beat the 3,000 or 4,000% gain that we're looking at for Bitcoin. It's going to be difficult, I can tell you that. And 90% of you that trade or want to trade actively will not beat a simple, almost carefree HODL strategy for Bitcoin. So just keep that in mind. But my main point is that if you want to do it, go ahead and do it. But just separate your account. Give a more than the 50% allocation to your overall funds to crypto to this HODL strategy. Put it aside, okay? Put it on the blockchain, obviously. Buy it and put it on the Trezor. Put it on a paper wallet, something secure. Put it in the safe or the drawer, and then execute the discipline and the HODL strategy that we have going forward. And I can guarantee you that as this market goes higher, you'll benefit from that versus sort of trying to trade the ins and outs of a very volatile market. All right, so relatively short video today. Wanted to focus on discipline and process. Very important. Look at this monthly chart here of Bitcoin. We're now above a simple 9-month moving average. It's not rocket science, but it does a pretty good job in illustrating the bear phase and bull phase. For me, this looks like a very, very clear-cut 4-year cycle low and a return to the bull market. As I said, nasty pullbacks and corrections will come, as you can see from many of the candles from the prior bear and bull market. We will see those again, but there's just no way of timing those. And the other important thing is that we're already 5 months into a new cycle here. 5 months. A cycle is only 48 months, 4 years worth. And we're predicting that for 2.5 to maybe 3 years of that cycle, Bitcoin will be going up. So that's only around about 30 to 36 months of that cycle. And we're already 5 months into that. So we're already well past 10% of the journey. And it's gone by pretty quickly, but that's just time. Time goes by quickly. And, all I can say is for those still sitting on the fence, I know it's difficult looking at these two big monthly candles and saying, I want price here because that's where it was. I don't want it here. Well, again, I just want to point out what we're looking for as a potential on this log scale here. So we're looking at this sort of $200 range, okay? And then you're looking at this. Let me fix that. Okay, so you're looking at filling this gap, and you're risking this gap. You already tried to fill this gap here last month and risk this gap. Excuse me. And now we have this gap here to play with. So just keep that in mind. I know it's very difficult to get back in at certain points. At some point, you just have to bite the bullet, as they say, and take your position. For the rest of us, more of a mental discipline, right? We have this as our goal. There are going to be profit targets along the way. If you look at the spreadsheet I have on the 4-year journey site, I have a page called the model portfolio. And you'll notice on that there is a target there for a first target sell at $16,000. And I've had a few people already mention this or inquire about this. $16,000 is only there. And you're like, what? You're taking profit that soon, or you're selling that soon? And yes, I am. And that was always my goal. I'm selling 5 of my Bitcoin at this level, at $16,000, to cover the investment that I made at the $4,000 level. And it's not about sort of taking profit. It's more about getting my investment back out so I can sit with 20 Bitcoin more comfortably as it moves higher. So if we're gonna ride a move into the sort of $30,000 and $50,000 range with a full boat without taking any profit, it's gonna be difficult emotionally, psychologically, to be holding those gains as the market starts to become volatile. And if you have 5 and 10% swings, let's just say you have a 5% swing at the $50,000 level, you're talking about a $2,500 move in a given day, okay? And if I have 25 Bitcoin, I'm talking about a $60,000 move in a given day. Now, that's a lot of money for anybody, okay? And that's half of the investment that I put in at the bottom of the cycle. So we're talking about swings in a given day of half your initial investment, whether you put in 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, or $1 million as your starting point for the 4-year journey. We're talking about half of that move, and that's significant. And it takes a lot of mental discipline to be able to watch your investment drop by that much. And if you have multiple days of 5% corrections, for example, without ever taking any profit, then what begins to happen is you start to question whether or not you've held on for too long, or whether or not you're actually at the very top of a market. And then you start to really question it, and then if you get 3 or 4 really bad days, you can potentially puke your entire position, meaning sell your entire position. Yes, it would be at some profit, most likely, but again, as I mentioned a few minutes back, my goal is not to make a small profit. My goal is to make a life-changing profit. And for me, in order to do that, I feel that if I can recover most of my initial investment around the $16,000 area, then as the market begins to move in these sort of 3 and 5% swings, I'll be okay with that, because I will know that the worst case is I'm not going to lose any money. Even if it came all the way back down to sort of 20,000 and it topped for some reason at that $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 level and did not go up to the goals that we had in place, I'm going to be okay with that, and I'm going to be able to ride those massive corrections. I may even be able to buy back in a little bit, not that that's my strategy, but I'll be in a strong position, financially, but also mentally, to be able to look at that $150 to $250,000 prize and execute on that strategy. And then lastly, $16,000 as a price is deliberate. I'll tell you why. One, it's 4 times my entry point, so that's the first thing. But second, I'm guarding against the possibility that this $20,000 top, for whatever reason, is a major top for maybe the next 4-year cycle as well. Okay, it's not, I talk about the upside potential a lot, and I have talked about downside, but I haven't talked too much about that. But there's always a chance that we get sort of this double top or close to it possibility in this cycle. We get what's called a left translated 4-year cycle, so we're topping the first year or so, and then we kind of grind lower and maybe make a new low. All right, so this becomes sort of this 8-year bear market. Okay, allows for more technology to be developed, and then it does in the next 4-year cycle kind of what we thought it might do in this 4-year cycle. Again, it's not a prediction. It's definitely not my expectation, but it is a possibility. And we're talking about considerable sums of money here. I want to be able to mitigate against that by being able to take a good amount of profit off the table here at this sort of $16,000 level. And if we do get something like this, then it's not going to, again, ruin me financially, even though it's sort of only more like a 10% allocation. I get most of my 10% allocation back, and I can live with this type of scenario. So it's more about risk mitigation at that point. All right. And so, again, focusing on discipline, process, think about that all the time. Think about the goal that we have here and not think short term. Don't be short sighted in the gains that you have. If you're adding up your gains consistently on paper, then I don't see how you have a major chance of taking advantage of this big opportunity that I think is directly ahead of us. Thank you for listening. This video actually went longer than I thought it would. Place any comments you have in the forum or on the YouTube post. I'll be happy to try and get to some of those or many of them. Again, I appreciate you listening and I wish you all the best.